Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink Beer, Play a Game, and we're giving you our August update for the Level 50 Club.
Yeah. Been a while keeping up with everything, so we figured, what the hell? Brian, how many games have you did in the past month?
A whopping 3.
I did 10.
You were a busy COVID boy.
Yeah, you know what? Being locked in the basement's got a few advantages here and there, so... Yeah, I guess I'll do a few in a row and get started.
Yeah, why don't you do a few chunks? I'll throw mine in there.
Okay.
I'm just here to listen today, Jim.
Yeah, right. Right. Actually, you motherfucker. So I've been listening back to the last few podcasts. I'm like, wow, I am a nasally bitch. I don't know how anyone out there does it. I am Squidward.
You are Squidward.
And today I'm dressed like Peter Griffin.
And today, I mean, this is the Jimbo show today.
Alright, first up, Gelatinous. Humanity Lost on the Game Boy. So we had the guys, Rue and Longy on here on the podcast, had a great episode with them, and I was a Kickstarter backer of it, and I'm happy with my purchase. Even like they said on the show, it's a small game, it's kind of a proof of concept for them that they can build a game like this. So the first third of it's kind of like a Metroidvania, and then it becomes like a really super hard platformer after that. Only a couple of boss fights throughout the game. It's not the longest in the world, but you're going to be restarting sections a lot because it is a hard son of a bitch. I will say the most genius idea they threw in there was a very fair checkpoint system that isn't too easy either. It comes up every 4 to 5 screens, and when you finally get there, you were breathing a sigh of relief that you finally got to another checkpoint. And plus, it has a built-in save feature, so if you get frustrated, which you will, you can always put it away and come back to it. So that's also a great touch. But yeah, it's a solid B. It's got its problems. The hitbox is extremely wonky, but outside of that, it's still an enjoyable time.
Nice. Yeah, that's one I may have to just borrow off you.
Next up, Legendary Axe 2 on the TurboGrafx 16. Throwing the Turbo some love in this list. This is one of my resolution games. And this has always been one of my favorite games in my Turbo collection, and I've been trying on and off for years to actually beat it. And it's actually not that insanely hard of a game, but once you get to the last 2 levels, that's when you really need to know your shit. Because the biggest thing with the game is if you die, one, all your weapon upgrades go away, and all the health upgrades you did get reduced by 2. So yeah, so don't die. But so that is tough to overcome. So unless you really know what you're doing, and the second to last level is kind of made to make you time out, unless you know what you're doing. So it's a newbie trap almost. So that hampered my progress. But when I was all sick with the coof, I just sat down and grinded through it 4 or 5 times, and it so they give you 3 continues, and your first life you could probably have 15 lives by the time you get to the last level. So I burned through between all my playthroughs, probably about 50 friggin' lives on the final boss, trying to kill that bastard, but finally lucked out enough and beat it. So I'm happy to do it, but it's still, great music, good graphics. It's dark, but it's got good graphics. Controls perfectly fine. It's an A for me.
Wow, okay.
And this one I can keep quick because we reviewed it already, and I never shut up about it. Star Fox 64, my favorite game of all time. I play through it at least once a year, so I had to do it for this. I love the absolute shit out of it. Check their links to our review to see my full opinions on it, and it's also one of the games on the N64 that actually holds up the best, too. So, it's a real shooter.
Okay. That's your opinion, Jim.
You name me a better hold-up game on the N64, maybe besides Mario Kart.
No Mercy. I think it holds up better than Star Fox.
No. Probably just as well, I'd say. I'd give it just as well now.
You would.
You go back and play it. It's a harder son of a bitch than you remember. But yeah, it's an easy yes. It's my favorite game ever, so I'm not going to not give it an S.
Nice. So I'll throw in one of my games right here. Wolverine on the NES. I have a kick because I actually want to play all the Wolverine games. Maybe getting footage for future ideas. But I knew nothing about that game other than seeing it on AVGN. And you know what? He's spot on. The game is so frustrating, overtly difficult, where you have this really large health bar, but it goes down so fast and you can't even use your special weapon without it taking life away from you, which I hate that. The other problem is the jumping is all over the place, and I think you get 3 lives. You can get 1-ups and shit, but I think you only get 3 continues and then it's game over. So really, really frustrating. Like a lot of those early games, LJN, not many levels, and I don't know who half these friggin' enemies are supposed to be. They're not Wolverine people, except for Sabretooth at the end. So that gets a D from me. It is not good. It's, I guess you could say, passable as a game, but I would never, ever recommend it.
Yeah, when I saw footage of it from the nerd video, it looked like a proto, like Arcade's Revenge. Like, it has, like, the same animation style and, like, almost sprite and all that shit. So, yeah, I can imagine that's rough.
There's so many times in that game you have to just go forward a little bit, duck, wait for someone to come to you, punch, and then move forward. It's one of those games where you're just like, this isn't fun at all. Or you can just try and cheese jumps over people because you jump like you're on the moon, but then you'll probably get hit with something else. So,
well, of course.
Pretty bad.
There you go. All right, my next game, Uncharted 2 on the PS3. So, I have talked for years about my hatred of Uncharted 1. And years ago, like probably 10 years ago at least, I tried playing Uncharted 2. And the first third of the game will basically remind you of Uncharted 1. And I hated it, and I turned it off. But I was like, this game was beloved. When it came out, it was widely called one of the best games of all time. So I figured, fine, I'll make it another resolution game and force myself through it. I gotta say, it seems like during development, they realized halfway through, oh, we could actually put something cool in the game. And not just have platforming section, bad combat section, platforming section, bad combat section in a forest. So they changed up the locales. They actually put all these crazy set pieces in. Like, yes, the train section is pretty exhilarating. And, I mean, even some boss fights, like you fight a fucking helicopter running back and forth through grenade launchers. Like, it's over-the-top goofy fun. So, you know what? It did kind of win me over. I have no desire to play another Uncharted game for another decade. But, like, I got my fill.
Okay.
So, you know what? I got to be fair and give it an A. Like, I'm not going to say it's, like one of the best games of all time. It's also beautiful, especially for the era it came out in, because that's when everything was, like, brown and gray. So to have something with such, like, luscious colors and, like, some of the landscape shots, like when you're standing on the high perks and you can just look over the horizon, you're pretty just like, wow.
Yeah.
So, no, it's an impressive game. It's definitely an A for me. Just that first third of the game's pretty brutal.
Gotcha.
Next up, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses. So, hey. So I appeared on a podcast, Reliving Retro, to talk about this game. One of these games that I always love. And you know what? The good thing about this game is you don't need to be a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Itself or the card game to be able to enjoy it. So it's not like the card game at all. It's like a weird, like you're using cards, but it's like a weird grid-based, like kind of strategy-ish game. So you can set your spells and traps, and your monsters also have to deal with like boost and stuff from different field terrains and all kinds of crap like that. And the deck cost for everyone you fight is different. So you could have a good deck going, but then have to cut out half of it and try to make do with what you have. So you can combine monsters to make better monsters, and figuring that out's fun. A little frustrating too, but it can be fun. Like, it's far from a perfect game, and it's weirdly set during the War of the Roses. So you actually, like, they actually put in all the history elements, but they'll just change like certain people's names, just throwing a Yu-Gi-Oh part. So, like, someone Lannister, but it'll be like Joey Lannister or shit like that, and they'll have Joey represent the guy. So it's a weird concept, but it just weirdly works. So definitely not perfect. Oh, and there's a fuckload of cards to unlock too. So like, if you enjoy the game, you will have content for years out of it. So I gave it a B. Like, it's a weird, solid spin-off that, you can play even if you don't like the series itself.
Okay.
And last up, Avenging Spirit on the arcade. So this was an arcade game from like 1990, 1991, something like that. And it was only from Japan. So random companies did a remaster of it to bring it to modern, not even a remaster, they just ported it. But they brought it to modern consoles. And I won a code from a giveaway. So it's all right. I'm glad I didn't pay for it.
That's the nicest way you're gonna put it, isn't it?
Pretty much. Like, it has a cool gimmick. So the gimmick is basically the story is like you're out with your girlfriend and you get killed by mobsters and they take your girl. But her dad's like this super scientist, and he found a way to like harness your like soul so you can go into other characters to control them and stuff like that. So your life gauge is basically, you have like a timer, which is like your soul energy, which like will deplete when you're not in a body, but then when you're in a body, you have a certain amount of energy there too.
Okay.
And all the enemies you can inhabit have different powers and different skills and pluses and minuses. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the graphics are fine. The music's okay. Apparently the port version, the music's sped up, whereas the sound effects are slightly delayed. So it's kind of weirdly botched there a little bit, but
out of sync or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but overall, like, the platforming's meh. Like, the combat's meh. Like, it's an okay game. It was meant to be a quarter muncher, too. I hear the Game Boy port's better, but, like, I gave it a C. It's fine. I wouldn't recommend going out and spending, whatever on it. But if you see it for a deal for a couple bucks, like, any eShop, you'll eventually see it for, like, $2. Maybe give it a go then.
Nice.
Or just meme it.
Yeah. My next game is a resolution game on my list, and it's a big one, and part of the reason why I only got 3 games done, because I focused so much time, is Bloodborne. And I've tried From Software games before. I must have restarted Dark Souls like 4 times already, and I could never get into them. Bloodborne I played a long time ago. It was still hard. I kind of fell off, and I was like, let me restart it, and man, did it suck me in. Number 1, by far my favorite graphical representation of the world. I don't know how else to say it. The world is so unique. It's got that like gothic architecture to it in a monstrous way. It's almost like the guy who makes what is it called? All the Cthulhu stuff.
Giger. H.R. Giger.
No. Giger's the
Or Alien.
artist.
I thought he did Cthulhu too.
No, what the fuck is his name? It's Lovecraft.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very much in that style. And what I love about it is the game is based on offense. So if you've ever played a From Software game, whether it's Souls or even Elden Ring, there's so much of those games that you just have to hold a shield, absorb a hit, and then roll away and do it. I don't like those because I've never liked being on defense. Same reason why I hate playing fighting games with online, because you get people like who just spam the hold back button for block and just wait. Like, I like doing the offense.
Don't worry, Bri. When I'm online, that does not work for me. Works against you, does not work online.
So with Bloodborne, you have to be on the offensive, and you get rewarded. Like, if you have damage, you can recoup some of it by hitting monsters. I loved it. I went above and beyond and got the best possible ending by doing all these extra tasks. So it sucked me in completely. I can get, if some people don't like that style, it is a hard game, but it's an easy S for me. The world, the graphics, and even the gameplay, once I got a hang of it, I love it all. So I can't recommend it enough. If you couldn't get into other From Software games because you felt they were a little too slow and the combat was too janky, this one I think got it right.
Nice. Yeah. I think that's supposed to be getting a remaster for the PS5.
Wouldn't shock me.
So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me either. So, if it does, or hell, even maybe I'll make that a resolution game next year.
Yeah.
So, I've always wanted to get around to that one. So, my next game, Mushihimesama. One of the most loved vertical shoot-em-ups of all time.
In a very small sector of the world.
Look, shmups are very niche.
They are.
So, you know what? It's not going to be a game for everyone. But, like, I typically don't like a lot of, like, the crazy bullet hell stuff. But this game gives you so many options that, like, you can still enjoy it and, like, learn the game as, like, because, I mean, you're going to have to just keep replaying and replaying. And for me to, like, count it, I basically counted it when I got the, the local top high score for each mode. And there's, like, 4 modes in the game. And there's so many different options because there is a bunch of different, like, arcade revisions, too. So, like, there's Arcade Revision 1.5, which gives you, like, different options or different ways to use your power-ups and all kinds of shit like that. And there's 3 main weapons, and figuring out how to do all of them and figure out the timing and the cancels of enemy bullets when you destroy certain big enemies and shit like that. Like, there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. And if you get better at it, you can up the difficulty, and then you can just, have the complete screen filled with bullets, and, you're moving a slight hair over to avoid it hitting your hitbox and stuff. I'm not that good yet, by far. But, like, the music's amazing. The sprite works graphics are, like, really good. Like, it's an arcade game from 2004, but, like, it's really, really good. And, like, shmups are the genre that I've been getting into over the past couple years. And honestly, like the learning curve, like it's tough, but like really fair too. I'm giving it an S. This might be the best shmup I've played yet. Like, I can't believe how much this sucked me in. And it took me like 15 tries before I could even like one mode get like the top score. But I was like, all right, but you feel yourself getting a little better and a little better and a little better.
Okay.
Don't you judge? Give me that goddamn look.
All I said was okay, Jim. This is the Jimbo show this time. So, you know what? Look, at the end, when we're done this year and we have the tier list and we see how you've ranked games,
It'll be perfect.
It'll be what's expected from you. I'll say that.
Be perfect. Next up.
That's all I'm saying. You don't disappoint.
What to expect from you. Love how he words that. Next up, Windjammers 2. All right, next game up, Windjammers 2. So the first Windjammers was a Neo Geo game from the early 90s. I played the eventual port that came out on Switch. It's on like everything now. And it's a really fun, basically Frisbee Pong variant. So basically you have a bunch of different characters, but some are more powerful, some are quicker, and you're trying to get it past the other person to get into the goal for points. So Windjammers 2, the sequel, not made by anyone. It wasn't made by SNK because SNK is a shell of its former self, but they did bring in people who worked on the original to like help work on this. So it's amazing how it feels like a natural progression and like sequel to the first one.
Gotcha.
So they added a few more characters, a couple more moves that you can do, and it's really, really fun. Like, it is a shitload of fun. And, like, the kind of cel-shaded graphics are going to be, like pixel art. It's going to be timeless. So, like, it's never going to look, like, really dated or anything. There's one big problem with it, though, and why I can never recommend it at full price. There's, like, almost no content to it. Like, you can play online, you can do the local tournament where you play against... and it's not easy. Like, you're going to have to play it a bunch of times before you win that local tournament.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're going to have to play it a lot to beat it. But even then, there's, like, that's all you have. And that's disappointing. Like, you can unlock a couple characters, but even beyond that.
It's just, the game is the game.
Yeah. So, the game itself, super fun. But the game to buy, I couldn't give it more than a C. Like, it's really, really, really fun. But there's nothing to it, unfortunately. So... buyer beware. I think it's on Game Pass. I don't know if it's still on there. So if it's on Game Pass and you have it, definitely give it a shot. Recommend it 100% there. But outside of that, wait for a sale for $5.
Nice.
And next up, before I take my next break, Turrican. So I have the Turrican flashback on Switch. So I played the first one, which is a port of the Amiga version. So I technically have an Amiga game on my list now. It's an Amiga game. It's not a Switch game.
But it's not on the Amiga. And for a purist like you can't. I mean, you got.
It's an Amiga game.
You got emulation. I mean, in theory, then I have every NES, Super NES, and Genesis game.
I mean, they are NES games. So there you go. But yeah, so like I've talked about Universal Soldier a lot, which is like quote unquote a butchered port of Turrican 2. So I've always been, and I have Super Turrican or Mega Turrican. So I've always been familiar with the franchise. But I never like really sat down with the first one a lot. So it was cool to go through. The biggest problem with this game is it's got this weird ass difficulty curve. Where like one level will be really easy or like one or two levels you're flying through and then you hit a brick wall. And you'll be okay and then you hit a brick wall. So like I was convinced like the second to last level was the last level because it's just full of death traps. And like even touching the side of any wall will just fucking drain your life instantly and kill you. But then the final level game was like kind of super easy afterwards. So it's weird. Like it's janky, it's old, it shows its age, but it's got good music and it's still a fun run and gun with like a real emphasis on platforming. So I gave it a B. I think it's still a solid game. It's got obvious problems, but it's still a fun time. And if you have like any interest in the series, it's probably like one of the best Euro platformers you'll ever play. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and then my final game is Uncharted, the first one. So I didn't make it my official resolution games, but I do want to get through the Uncharted series because I have them, and they're also, now that I'm on PS5, like I have the monthly thing, so I have them all available. Like Jim, I played it, and right off the bat, it was just very apparent to me, like, wow, the combat is really, really rough. My number one issue with the combat is actually the way the camera looks. it doesn't line up. Like Gears of War, I think, perfected the over-the-shoulder shooting mechanic, where they're behind you, they zoom in. This one, you're kind of still see all of Nathan Drake at an angle that doesn't make sense on how he's shooting people. And yes, you can switch the gun from side to side, but it's not fluid and it doesn't feel right at any point in the game. You might get used to it, but the combat sucks. The platforming, what I did like about the platforming is that it is very generous. There are some jumps where I was like, I'm not making this. And I made it. I'm like, oh, okay, then this is kind of easy. The set pieces were all cool, and I liked the little twist in there, like when you're in the one area, and it's like, I don't even know what kind of monsters you would call those things.
Yeah, I forget. It's been a long time.
They're not zombies. You know what they remind me of? The things from the movie The Descent. Mm-hmm. Like, so they're kind of like skittering around. The difficulty at the final boss is so unreasonable. Just trying to get in between the two platforms to fight him, and then if you don't time it right, you die and have to restart it. That annoyed the shit out of me, but I was just shocked that this game spawned a whole franchise. Like, they must have had the other games in mind before they started it. So, best case, I can give this as a C. And it's not a high C. It's high C. But yeah, it has its flaws. The graphics, for the time, they look great. I'll give it that. Nowadays, they feel dated. But yeah, if you're going to start with the series, try to take our advice. You probably don't need to start with the first one. Although,
and we're both guys who, like, we in our heads need to start with the first one, and that's a mistake.
Yeah, so I can't wait to try the next one, seeing how it seems like I'm in line with how Jim felt with the first game. So yeah, C is best, I'll give it. All right, Chambers, so what's your final game?
My last game. Sonic 3 and Knuckles. The full story, Brian.
Full shebang.
When I bitched about the game before, everyone went, well, you just played Sonic 3. You got to play Sonic 3 and Knuckles to get the full experience. It's going to change your mind.
Jim, you mean you're not a full-on Sonic fanboy now?
No, I'm not. I'll give it, like, I'm going to save a lot of my opinions for when we do our full review, because it's a Patreon request review, so we're going to put more of the effort into that. But I will say, like, as I eventually played it and, like, played more, I eventually kind of got it. Like, I kind of got why people love it. It doesn't mean that I love it as much as they do.
But you can understand.
But I can understand it. So, like, on it, it's not friendly to first timers. That's one way I can definitely go about it. I have so much to fucking say about this game. Like, I'm actually, like, little behind the scenes thing. We don't really script a lot of our reviews. We just kind of shoot from the hip because we want it to feel more natural to us. I'm scripting this thing. Like, I got things to say that I don't want to miss. So, because we're going to make a point. I'm going to say it right now. For all the praise it gets, it's kind of overrated.
It's very overrated.
But we have legitimate gripes and reasons why.
Yeah.
So,
and here's the deal. I played that game. I was determined I was going to beat it, and then I actually spent I don't know how many hours with it. And I went, I don't want to put the effort into beating it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say graphics and sound still, they're a different track. It doesn't feel like a Sonic game, and they try to go really ambitious with like map design and this and that, and it ultimately slows down a lot of the action. At least for me, it slows down a lot of the action, and they just felt like they put more time into thinking like, how can we add more secrets and this and that, which maybe some people love, but it results in a not as fun Sonic game.
You know what it is? It's the first time where a Sonic game is going to appeal to Sonic fans. That's what it is. It's the one, like, a lot of people say adventure into 3D eras when it's like, oh, only Sonic fans enjoy these games. I think to be really this fanatical about Sonic 3, like, you have to have that Sonic fan mindset, basically. But we're going to you stay tuned. When that review drops, you'll see all of our thoughts why. But you know what? And I actually had to play it a shitload more than Brian because, like, I beat it, I went back for all the emeralds, play through that secret last ending. I'm getting footages playing as Tails and Knuckles. Even going back to base Sonic 3 to get the original last boss that got cut out. So, I'm doing my diligence on this one. But, with all that being said, I still think it's a B. I think it's a very solid game. I just think it's overrated.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and a B is where, and like I said, I didn't beat it, but that's where my mind is. It's just sad for me because coming off of 1 and 2, I had this idea of Sonic being like, oh, this is the fun games. And then when we got this review request, I was excited. And then I played it. And yeah, I have a lot of issues too.
yep. So we'll be getting into that. But yeah, stay tuned for that video.
Yeah, and make sure if you aren't already part of Level 50 Club, all you gotta do, just tag us, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Discord, any of our ways of communicating with us. Just hashtag it, let us know how many games you beat, you'll get added onto the list. We're both, Jim's 5 games away from hitting the 50, I still got 7, and I think I'm trying to close out my resolution, and they're all really long games. So, we'll see. I may pad it with games in between, but still, 50 is definitely doable in a year.
Yep, and thank you to everyone who's been playing along with us. You know, even as the weeks go on, we still see a random new person join in with the Level 50 Club. So they're like, this is cool. It's, spreading a little bit. So, as long as you're all having fun and, banging out as many games as you can, it's what it's all about.
Best part of this for me was this forced me to take care of a lot of my backlog.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think of my 50 games, there wasn't one that is a game I played before so far. And a lot of them ended up being backlogged. Like, I've been meaning to play this for a while, and now it forced me to do it.
Yeah, maybe tops, I'll say maybe tops, 10 of my 50 games will be games I've played before.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still, 40 new games for me, still not
That's
bad.
good.
Yeah.
So, like I said, tag us, follow along, and we hope you guys are enjoying it. With that, we want to say have a good night, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers, all.